Hey everyone, my name is Cami and I'm the Education Director here at Bridgercare. I know a lot of folks are uncertain what it means to teach sex ed, so I thought I'd give you a rundown. One of my main jobs is to lead the high school peer education team that we co-facilitate with Haven, our local domestic violence shelter. And these high school students meet once a week to learn about topics like healthy relationships, STIs, birth control, and consent, and puberty, of course, too. And then they get to come with us into schools to help teach portions of lessons, and they also act as informal resources to their peers when people have questions outside of lessons. I love the peer educators. I think they're crazy effective because a lot of youth are much more likely to listen to information that's being presented by their peers than by someone that they would consider to be a middle-aged lady who's just lecturing them. And I'm okay with that. So we always are there to support our peer educators when they're teaching, and I love the opportunity to work with them. So we definitely do a lot of our teaching in schools. We also offer some workshops, and we do some professional development trainings for healthcare providers as well. So a wide variety of things, and we also get the opportunity occasionally to do things like present at the Bozeman International Film Festival or teach classes up at MSU, just a variety of things. And everything that we do is medically accurate. We make it as inclusive as possible of LGBTQ plus communities. It's trauma informed, and we do everything based on current best practices for teaching sex ed. So I love teaching sex ed, right? It's not just a job for me, it's a passion. And it's very similar to me to raising my child, right? I've been at Bridgercare for just over 5 years, and my daughter will turn 5 this spring. And it's kind of like fun to watch them both grow and blossom and do things that I didn't always expect that they were gonna be able to do. My very first year teaching here at Bridgercare, that first school year, we taught 800 participants, and we taught them things like anatomy, STIs, birth control, consent, and puberty. And while we're still teaching those same topics, we've been able to add some more offerings for schools. And 3 years later, instead of teaching 800 participants, we were teaching 2,800 participants. And most of these kids we were seeing more than once. We got to see them 2 or sometimes even 3 days in a row. And in some schools, we get to teach there year after year after year. So it's fun to watch those kids grow and change, and it's especially interesting when they actually remember something that I taught them from the year before. So it's just been such a wonderful opportunity to get to know other kids in the community. Aside from being able to teach more participants, we've expanded our offerings. So in the past, we offered puberty workshops that were segregated by gender. We had growing up female and growing up male, and we've mixed them together to be prepping for puberty, growing up for folks of all genders, where all kids get to learn about changes that are gonna happen to their body and their emotions and changes to them socially. And their parents get to come to those workshops as well to learn alongside them, as well as learn about how to support their children emotionally during this time of change. Other workshops that we've been able to create in the last few years is a workshop for middle schoolers, covering some topics about sexuality that maybe aren't being discussed in our local middle schools, depending on the teacher and the year and what's being taught. So we've also got workshops that we're now offering for parents on how to talk to your kids about sexuality, and we're able to talk to healthcare providers and support staff about how to provide affirming healthcare to LGBTQ plus patients. So it's just been great to see these needs cropping up in our community and be able to fill those needs with education that is affirming and inclusive of all. So I don't think I mentioned, but I am the only paid educator here at Bridgercare, and I do have my amazing peer educators to help me, but we are definitely at capacity at this point. There are a lot of needs we've identified in our community that we've been able to meet, but there are definitely still some unmet educational needs. So we are looking to double our educational capacity, and doing so would allow us to do more outreach in our rural communities, among other things. We did have the great opportunity this year to teach a couple of classes at Park High, thanks in large part to 2 of our peer educators who go to school there that were able to put us in contact with their administration and get those discussions started. But with the resources I currently have, I'm not able to get out there more than a couple of times a year. Also, we've transitioned our LGBTQ plus healthcare allies training to be able to be done over Zoom as well as in person. And this means that we could reach out to other areas of the state that we have not been able to do before. But again, with the resources that I have, I can't do that, right? Other things that we we could do. There are workshops like our puberty workshops and our middle schooler workshops and our workshops for parents on how to talk to your kids about sexuality that I'm only offering once or twice a year, and we definitely would be able to offer more often if we had enough resources, and there is the need in the community for us to offer them more frequently. We could also hire a second educator, which would be amazing because it would mean that we could take trainings like our LGBTQ plus healthcare ally training, which helps healthcare providers think through how to provide a more affirming healthcare to LGBTQ plus patients. We could adapt that to being for schools and youth serving professionals as well, as we definitely see a need there. So doubling our educational capacity, there's just so many things that we could do, so many areas for growth that we have already identified, and just at this point in time, we're not able to do. And I'm very excited and hopeful that that is something we'll be able to do in the next year. So I'm guessing you already know a lot of reasons why it's important for people to have medically accurate and inclusive sex ed, but I've got just a couple for you. Definitely it's important to teach sex ed to kids going through puberty so they know what to expect, not only physically, but also emotionally and what those social changes might be as well. This can help decrease the anxiety that they feel and make it more likely that they feel empowered to talk to other people about any concerns that they may have. When teaching at the high school level, when we're teaching things like STIs and birth control, it's so important that students have this information before they're sexually active so that they have all of the information they need to make healthy, responsible, informed choices. And definitely, adults don't have all the answers either. When I was a kid, I thought they did, and then I became an adult and realized I'm still just making it up as I go along. And especially because so many people had terrible sex ed when they were kids themselves, there's still a lot of misinformation that's floating around out there, especially around topics like consent, that need to be dispelled both with college students and with adults. So sex ed, there's so many reasons that it's important, and it's not just about the anatomy, right? It's about healthy relationships, it's about sexual orientation, it's about gender, it's about, appropriate touching, and all of these things are things that we teach in our classes when we get to teach about sex ed.